Hello and welcome. Aquarister here, coming to you with another video, and today is a big day because the Fellowship and Fire Season 1 came out for New World. Now, a lot of people were upset that it was delayed, but honestly, the patch and the servers themselves have been running pretty good. A few hiccups here and there, which is to be expected with any big patch. But it was a really big balance patch as well. So those who are really into PvP or even PvE, we are noticing some pretty big differences out there, especially myself in OPR. But today we are going to be looking at an Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet build, medium armor, and I actually had developed this build prior to the patch, but with the intention that it would be used for this patch. So let's take a look at the gear to get us started and see what we got going on. All right, so let's take a look at our gear and what we got going on here. So as I said, we are in medium, and we are at the highest medium we can get at 22.9 weight. So for the gear, the majority of my gear revolves around resilient, refreshing evasion, and freedom. That is what I went for with this build. Now, freedom obviously is really important because of all the CC that's in the game. They did make it so medium armor, now you actually get a 10% reduction in crowd control duration. So it's kind of like having an extra stack of freedom on your equip load. So that's not too bad. But what we got going on is heavy helm with freedom, refreshing evasion, resilient. We have a heavy chest with freedom, refreshing evasion, resilient. We have medium gloves with refreshing evasion, resilient, unending thaw. Now, the pants took me a little while to get these even, so I wasn't as picky once I got them, but they have deadly frost, resilient, and invigorated. And then our boots are freedom, nullifying oblivion, resilient. So that is my armor that we got going on. The only piece of light is pants, medium gloves, boots, heavy chest, and helm, and that will keep you in medium. And then we do have rune glassed with diamonds and the ice rune glass, the frozen rune glass. So that will give us a total, from just the rune glass alone, that gives us a total of a 10% buff to our ice damage. Now for weapons, this particular Void Gauntlet I just happen to have, and so that is what I'm using. I like the refreshing move and then the putrefying scream. The putrefying scream is the most important part of the build, though, as far as the Void Gauntlet goes. I do highly recommend having it on your Void Gauntlet as opposed to on a piece of armor, because the disease that you're giving out is at 40%. It's a 40% disease for 8 seconds from your scream. So it's a really big scream, pretty long duration, really, really strong. And then for my Ice Gauntlet, I am rocking this, and I've been running this Ice Gauntlet for quite a while now. I've really liked it. It's worked great, so I don't really change much on it. So we got the Pylon Burst, Vicious, and Refreshing Move. The nice thing is then our Pylon deals an extra 10% damage, plus it has the burst around it. So it does help with the damage output, and can kind of cover your back a little bit. Heart Rune, I am using Bile Bomb. I'm using the Cunning Heart Rune of Bile Bomb, and it works really well for an AoE build. I think you can't really beat it. You can go with vines, you can go with a lot of different options. I just really like Bile Bomb because, especially for OPR, which is primarily what I use this build for, you can Bile Bomb the doorways along with all your other AoE, and it really does make a difference. Now for jewelry, I do swap it up a little bit. My earring I do keep the same. We've got refreshing evasion, refreshing toast, purifying toast. Those are the 3 perks that I was looking for, so that was ideal. For the ring, I switched between 2 different rings. I crafted this ring about a week ago. Leeching, invigorated punishment, ice damage with full int. Very good ring, and the leeching does apply to the pylon. So the pylon does get you just a tiny bit of passive healing over time. But the other ring that I have is an invigorated punishment, crippling, refreshing evasion. Another really good ring for this build, or really anything that involves the Ice Gauntlet, because it does apply that slow a little bit longer. So either ring, though, I kind of switch between the 2. I've been rocking the ice damage a little bit more, just for a little bit higher damage output, but you can kind of go either way. If I were to have just a 2 perk ring, I'd probably go with ice damage and invigorated punishment is probably the route that I would go. Now for amulet, Currently I'm running Graveguard Seal, which is a really good amulet that gives you slash protection, divine, and health. Full con, and then it normally comes with a moonstone, which gives you the slash protection, but because of the current meta being so heavy into fire staff, I do have a fire gem slotted in there just for a little extra resistance. Now, if I'm noticing that, let's say there's not a lot of slash damage coming at me, then I can switch up to this amulet and try to go for even higher cooldown reduction with more refreshing evasion. Because again, stacking that refreshing evasion does make a big difference. It does help a lot in terms of getting those cooldowns back mixed with the refreshing move. So this is what I run for the gear. It's been working great. The only thing that I might change personally is eventually I might someday get some pants that instead of invigorated, maybe we'll have refreshing evasion or freedom. But honestly, for now, I'm not worrying about it too much. It's been working great. So this is the gear. Let's go take a look at the weapon builds and see what we're looking at for that. Okay, starting with Void Gauntlet. This is kind of my go-to Void Gauntlet build, even if I'm healing with Void Gauntlet. You know, if I've got Lifestaff Void, or Ice Void, or even Fire Void, this is the same build that I run for all of them. And it's been working really good. Now, they have made a few changes to Void Gauntlet with the update. One in particular to my Void Gauntlet build that I am going to go over, but let's take a look at the build first. So 3 abilities, running Orb of Decay, Oblivion, and Petrifying Scream, which we do have the Putrefying Scream on top of that, and Nullifying Oblivion. So with this, this is kind of what we do for the Annihilation side, because I do try to push the Decay side in order to get Glimpse of the Void. Pretty straightforward on Annihilation side. We're going to max out both of the abilities. For those who have run Void Gauntlet, they have changed the way that the regen works for stamina for this. So before you would get like 15 stam per tick, and now it's just a regen rate. So it's just a little bit, it's different. It's a little bit of a nerf in my opinion, but it's still really strong to get the regen rate up. But we do have the Nullifying Oblivion, which will remove any of the timed buffs on those people. So we got these. For 2 passives, we're running Empowering Proximity, so we do gain Empowering as long as we cast ability within 5 meters, which usually a Scream, you're within 5 meters. And then we get this Keen Confidence just to get that first stack to get down here. Now, on the Decay side, we have Cleansing Harvest. Now, Cleansing Harvest is new. Prior to this, it was a different perk. They actually reworked it. So now it will actually remove 1 debuff. I cannot remember for the life of me what the perk used to do. I believe there was one that did cooldown. I believe that's what it used to do, is if you'd hold Harvest Essence, it would actually bring your cooldown reduction down on your abilities. But that doesn't really matter too much for the way that we play this build. So now you can actually remove 1 debuff, which is quite nice. It's kind of like having a Purifying Toast. So if you have Purifying Toast plus that, you actually can get 2 debuffs removed, which is pretty handy at times. Pretty straightforward build, like I said, nothing too fancy about it. And then we go down to Glimpse of the Void, which I really do recommend. Glimpse of the Void. If you pay attention to your stacks that you're going to get with the Void Gauntlet, pay attention to that and can land a heavy, you will get all your cooldowns back instantly, and it can really make a big difference for the team fights, which we will go over kind of how I do that, how I pay attention to that and everything. Next, let's take a look at the Ice Gauntlet build. Now, this Ice Gauntlet build is very particular. It's very specific to how I play it and how I build it. So as you can see, it's a Pylon build, which I know some people are not a huge fan of Pylon, but I'm going to show you why I absolutely love Pylon, why I really do think it's a fantastic ability outside of just doing damage. Again, this is a pretty straightforward build as far as this left side goes. We're going for the increased base damage, or damage of basic attacks by 15% for targets within 15 meters. So they did change this. This used to be they had to be 15 meters away, and now it's they need to be within 15 meters. So it actually buffs the Ice Gauntlet, in my opinion, for the way that we play it with this build, because a lot of our Ice Gauntlet play and all of our like plays in general are a lot closer range. We're not usually we're not 15 meters out from the enemy. So really good change to that. We do max out Ice Storm, so when we have Ice Storm maxed, we still want to have Critical Frost, so we increase a critical chance, and then the Heavy Freeze, which we can apply the Root with a heavy attack. Now on the right tree, we do max out our Ice Shower to make sure that we can get down to the Rend, and then in order to get all the way down to Ultimate Frost, which does increase the Frost area of your pylon, we need to add in a couple of others. So I add in Quick Frost, so we do get a movement speed by 10%. Plus, if you are in a frost area, it actually doubles that. So you're actually at a 20% movement speed inside the frost area of a pylon specifically. So that is really nice. And then this is probably the most important perk of all. This is the one that if you need to make sure you get a perk on your build with your pylon, this is the one to go with. So Refreshing Frost. Do not sleep on this perk. I know some people don't use it, but do not sleep on this perk. It is fantastic. So it reduces the cooldown of all Ice Gauntlet abilities by 20% when casting an ability in a frost area. So not just one ability. So the initial, let's say we cast an Ice Storm inside of like our pylon frosted area. We will get a 20% cooldown on our Ice Storm, and if our Ice Shower is also on cooldown, we get a 20% cooldown reduction on that. So it's really huge for cooldowns because you mix this cooldown reduction along with all the refreshing evasion you have and the refreshing move, and we get cooldowns back really, really quickly. That's what this whole build revolves around, is cooldown reduction. So this is the Ice Gauntlet build that we work with. Definitely you want to pay attention to some of these perks. You know, you have the pylon dodge, increases your pylon fire rate for 3 seconds. You can actually trigger that to fire, and we'll go over that next. We'll take a look at some of the abilities and what all you can do with it, and kind of how I like to play with it. But this is the Ice Gauntlet build. This is what I've been running since the kind of mid to end of last patch. Kind of figured it out and started playing it, and then it transitioned into this patch and has been working great. So that is the build. One last thing here is the attributes. Let's go over the attributes really fast. So I do run 200 con, so we get the extra 10% increase to physical and elemental armor. Does help a lot because I play pretty close with this build. I play right up with the bruisers, so I can kind of assist and buff them or help slow down the other team's bruisers. And then I still run the 300 in, which the perk for 300 in isn't the best, but you know, high enough int that we're still doing enough damage to help the team. So that's what we got for our weapon builds and our attributes. Next, let's go take a look at some of these perks and abilities, and I can kind of show you how I like to play the build. Okay, so there are a couple new things with Ice Gauntlet. Obviously, we looked at some of the perks and a few of the changes, as well as with Void. Let's start with the Void Gauntlet. Void Gauntlet's pretty straightforward. We do have Nullifying Oblivion, which again, I can't really show you on the dummies here, but with Nullifying Oblivion, when you do drop a circle, it will remove, like let's say they have an Empower or a Fortify, it'll actually remove that as long as the enemy's in that circle when you cast it. So Oblivion, pretty straightforward. Buffs your team, debuffs the other team. Really good ability. Now, what we're going to look at is Glimpse of the Void. So I'm going to show you how to trigger that in case you don't know. I know I have gone over this in previous videos, but it is a good refresher. So the way this works is when you hit someone with a Void Gauntlet ability like Scream or Orb, Oblivion does not count, it will give you a stack. And when you get 4 stacks and you land a heavy attack on an enemy after that, you will actually get your cooldowns back. We have 4 enemies right here, and I should be able to hit my orb through all of them. And I'll show you. If you look right above my health bar when I send this, you should see the stacks. So see how we are at 4 stacks. We'll add 1 more, and then watch what happens with the heavy. We get our cooldowns back immediately. And then it puts you on about a 15-second timer. So about every 15 seconds, you can actually trigger your abilities twice. You just need to be able to get those stacks back. So it's not too difficult to get those stacks and to keep them, as long as you have the cooldown reduction and can kind of keep that up. But definitely something you want to be looking for. All right, so that is the Void Gauntlet. Again, you have your Putrefying Scream. You're going to be using that on enemies, trying to prevent them from healing. Anything like that, slows, you know, you're stunning them, ridding them, all that. So pretty straightforward as far as Void Gauntlet goes. Now, the Ice Gauntlet is where it gets a little bit trickier and very different with the way I play it, I guess. A lot of people run Entomb, or if they are running Pylon, they kind of run away from their Pylon or whatever. And we are actually going to be playing around our Pylon. So, like I said, looking back at the build, we have our Refreshing Frost, right? So Refreshing Frost, along with going to Ultimate Frost, the Ultimate Frost increases the radius of our frosted area by 5 meters. So that gives us a huge range to run around in. And then on top of that, we have the Quick Frost, which is also doubled. So we have a 20% movement speed increase. So I'll show you here. When we lay our Pylon, for one, you can see our movement speed. 2, with the Pylon, see how it's shooting faster? So when I dodge, increases fire rate, and you can actually trigger it to fire twice if you time it right. See how when it hits, you dodge, and you can kind of keep dodging and kind of keep that fire rate going. See that? So that's with Pylon. One of the cool features with Pylon they just added is you can actually remove your Pylon. If you hold F, you can actually remove it. So kind of a cool feature. You didn't used to be able to remove Pylon. Once you placed it, it was just kind of there until either someone killed it or the time was up on it. So that is kind of with the Pylon. That's how, as far as like how you can control the fire rate. It's really just dodging, and if you pay attention to the actual fire rate, you can kind of like boom, boom, like you can send them twice, and you can make it work really, really well and do a lot of damage. But now we're going to look at the cooldown reduction of Pylon, or with the Pylon frosted area. So first we're going to start with a Pylon. And then with the Ice Shower, as you can see, our cooldown is now 20 seconds. Now watch what happens when we lay down an Ice Storm. Look at that cooldown reduction. And then with all of our Refreshing Evasion. And now we've gotten that back. Gotten that back. See, your cooldown reduction is kind of crazy with it. If you have Refreshing moves and a bunch of Refreshing Evasion, you can kind of go nuts with a lot of this. So this is definitely where cooldown reduction is everything with this build. That is how I designed it. That's how I've used it. The cooldown is crazy. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and we can have upwards of 5 or 6 stacks of Refreshing Evasion depending on how we want to run our jewelry. I have an amulet and a ring also with Refreshing Evasion, which you can definitely stack. I would probably recommend, now that I've tested Refreshing Evasion out quite a bit, I would recommend probably at least 4 stacks to really notice a big difference. And if you do blend that in with the Refreshing move, it really does help a lot. But that is kind of how I like to run it. It's very cooldown reduction focus. It's less of the high, just like, we need to burst down the enemy as fast as possible, and more of like, we need to get these cooldowns. We need to just send as many abilities as possible. Just keep trying to keep the CC on the outpost, on the, you know, objective. So it's definitely a build that's revolved more around objectives, less around like the individual like 1v1s and stuff. But that's kind of how I run it. It is all cooldown reduction based. That is what I go for with the build. So let's take a look at this build in action for a little bit. You can kind of see some OPR action and see what you think of it. But yeah, so enjoy some action of this build. is going to do it for this one. So thank you to everyone who was watching. I really hope that Season 1 goes great for you. The Fellowship and Fire update has been fantastic. The patch has been great as far as the balance changes goes. I know Fire Staff's really strong right now, but we are going to see more balance changes, and it sounds like they might try to get more consistent with hearing that feedback and maybe making balance changes sooner than they have in the past. So that would be really cool. But I really do hope this video helped you out, and I hope that this build helps you out because it's a really, really fun build, especially if you are a mage and if you want to dabble into the medium armor. This is a great build for you. You're definitely going to be up in the action, so don't be afraid to push with the fights. Press some W, and you'll have a good time with it. But that is going to do it for me for this one. So if you would like, you're always welcome to drop a subscribe, drop a like on the video if it did help you out. And I do stream on Twitch throughout the week, so I would love to have you stop by, say hello, ask some questions, or just hang out with us. But yeah, you're always welcome to stop by a stream. But that is going to do it for this one. So until next time, I will see you guys later.